Hmm. Hi guys. So this morning I was in a conversation with a gorgeous 16-year-old girl, and I love to say to her friend, right, often is that I love a good storm, because after a good storm there's always a celebration, but it depends on what type of storm it is. And it reminded me of the power of storytelling, how authentic storytelling and owning your own story, how incredibly empowering that is. It's one of the human desires, right? One thing that we all want is just to simply to be heard and seen exactly as we are, for who we are, to be able to show up and shine as bright, as fully as we am. We don't want to be fixed, right? We don't want to somebody else to heal us or to do anything, because there's nothing to be fixed in us, right? Anything and everything that we experience inside of ourselves, even if that is anger or frustration or something that isn't really working as a creation in our life, it doesn't mean that we need to be fixed. It simply means that we are lacking a skill that can ultimately bring us to where we would love to be. And so my conversation with this gorgeous 16-year-old girl this morning, who was expressing herself authentically, brought me to the empowering mechanisms of storytelling. Because as soon as we start speaking what we really think, right, without any fear, shame, guilt, or any other emotions, when we are beyond the point of caring anymore to keep up a persona of who we are, and authentically start speaking, there the power is. And we truly say what our experience is. It's not about truth, it's not about right or wrong, it's about sharing the experience as how we are experiencing it in this world. And so the girl was sharing, and the more she shared, and the more I felt the fire and the passion and the anger in her words. The anger of what it is that she was experiencing, but just being fully responsible for her own story, right? She took full responsibility for what it is that she felt, without attacking somebody else, but just really, really clearly sharing her story and her perception of how things are, right? There's nothing to be fixed there. And that was so empowering. And yes, I seen the comments coming by, be real, be fully real. And there are a lot of blocks often between us and our possibility and our ability, right, to be real. It's the fear of what other people say. It's the fear of not knowing the words. And showing up fully as you are, like totally real in this authentic expression, is also a skill. It's something we learn. I wasn't authentic or skillful at this at all when I was a kid. I was clumsy. I didn't know what to say. I was by times rude or arrogant. Not because that was what I truly felt, because nobody taught me the art of authentic expression and how storytelling, right, telling your story in a truthful and powerful way with the words that are suited towards you, is so empowering and healing. And nothing has to be done there. Nothing has to be fixed. Just an audience who listens and who sees you, right? There's nothing to do. Often as we are the receiver of a story, we perceive that, like, okay, now I need to sit up and listen and then come up with some sort of really intelligent answer to this. Like, we need to have an answer. Somebody is sharing authentically how they feel. But it's not about answers. It's in the sharing where the true power is. It's not in the answers at all. And I remember that frustration when I was a younger girl, where I wanted to share my full truth. And I was around the same age as the girl I was speaking with this morning, around 16 years old. And I was looking at my mother in the living room and just feeling the frustration of kind of like not knowing which type of words to use in order to be heard. And there we come with emotional responsibility, right? And true responsibility and the true listening of it. Because in order to be a true listener to somebody else's story, to fully receive it, right? To receive somebody's story without judgment and without the need to fix somebody or to do something. We have to be able to control, or not so much control, to be owner of our own inner experience. We might be touched by what the other person is saying, right? It might trigger things in us. It might remember us of stories and events and things that happened in our own life at certain points that are similar to that person. But it's so important to just listen and be silent and to feel that, to feel what the other person is experiencing in their truth and their words at the moment. And then, only then, afterwards, we can share, right? So there is this ownership in our own stuff. And it's an art to be able to just zip it when somebody is speaking, to grant them the space to speak and the space to share their story, regardless of what that is, right? Is the ownership, the full, total ownership of your own story, without shame, guilt, fear, or the need to respond and to fix somebody else in that moment. And then it becomes really beautiful. This morning, when I was listening to this 16-year-old, I just sat there and listened. And once in a while, I asked the question in order to support her to actually bring more of that into the mix. And it was amazing to see that power shine, because there the openness is created in order to make shifts, right? We can simply ask, do we like to stay in the reality of where we are, in the experience of where we are? Or is there something that we like to upgrade? And where the next thing that comes up with me is the power of our words. We are the words we speak. And that sounds like some sort of floating mystic on a yoga pillow, like some wisdom. But there's so much truth in that. We are the words that we speak. So the intention with which we speak and the words that we use are of utmost importance, right? Conveying our story, but using words of blame or placing responsibilities somewhere outside of ourselves is actually creating another painful experience. Because the power then lays outside of oneself. The power doesn't lay with you. So it's also an art to start learning to use which words to use to express yourself. And many of us are so clumsy expressions, then like just blabbering out whatever comes into our brains and then call that authentic expression isn't really what it is that I mean here, right? There's this, we gotta take full responsibility, but 100%, not just a 99%, 100% responsibility for what it is that we speak. And if you don't know how to speak, that is okay. Right? Nobody taught us. Nobody taught me how to speak or to be natural or to be fearless in sharing my stories and just to show up and just present myself without a blame or a pointing at somebody else. Either that might be another person or society or a system or an organization or my environment, or even blaming my own feelings. Nobody taught me how to do that, right? And if we go back into some sort of victimhood of response and reacting, like I don't have the words, I don't know, yeah, but him and you are so natural. No, there's nothing natural about me showing up as it is right now. Like I wasn't able to do this a couple of years ago, but I practiced because I was so incredibly clumsy when I was a kid. Right? Nobody understood a word of what it is that I'm saying, and I kept on showing up as an utter fake. I felt miserable, I felt misunderstood, I felt not heard, and the only way of communicating that somebody ever taught me, right, that I saw in my surroundings, that my parents knew, that everybody knew, nobody knew better. Like, how can I blame somebody else? They don't know it either. Right? You can't teach somebody that what you don't know yourself. So I started learning and obtaining the skill to speak. Right, to express myself, because I thought and I found out that the greatest pleasure and the greatest freedom I can give myself is the ability to be okay with myself and to express myself authentically, and therefore how we share our stories, right? So the words we use to share our stories, our ability to keep complete ownership of our emotions, our words and take responsibility for our story, and then also take responsibility to share it, right? To show up. Because if we decide to show up from this place of ownership and responsibility, we will be surprised how many people actually listen on the other side. Suddenly somebody who was never, ever, ever able to listen to you now is silent and starts listening, simply because the energy of unconscious attack isn't there. The energy of unconscious feeling responsible, right? Or the feeling of needing to take responsibility for somebody's experiences falls away when we take ownership of our words and our expressions. And if you have no clue how to do that, and if you end up in clumsy conversations and clumsy listening and fights on a regular basis with either with yourself or with the people you love, or with strangers, or in the supermarket or anywhere else, that's okay, right? We haven't been taught that. It's an art. It's not something that just miraculously shows up and you are supposed to be knowing how to handle all of this. It's practice. And I started to become the queen of awkwardness. Right? I started to become that person who is in conversation and then mess it up completely. And then I see the other one responding on the other side and become like totally awkward. And I'm thinking, right. Okay, so how I communicated this was not what happens on the other side, right? Sometimes the awkwardness is just simply there because the skill of listening, right, may not be fully developed yet, which is funny, right? And things become awkward. And when I started taking responsibility for that, it became really fun, right? Because I could say sorry, right? And I could just try again, try in other words. Like, what would happen if I use this wording? So what would happen when I use these sentences? How can I say the same thing in different wording, right? Without selling myself short, without putting aside what it is that I experience, right? Without putting aside my own personal truth, but to play with the words. It's like a song, like a theater, right? The world is our stage, and the people that we encounter are our audiences, right? I am my own audience. How would I want to be spoken to? What is it that would make me feel miraculous? Which is the craft that I start listening to somebody? Which words do they use? That I, in sort of utter awe and appreciation, just stop whatever it is that I'm doing and become present in a moment because I want to listen to that. And this pure fire of any emotion, when taken full on responsibility by the one who's experiencing it, as well as having the craft, right? How do you say that in English? Having made your own, the craft of your own words, right? That flow through you. And the more authentic we become, the easier the words become. It's such a joy for somebody to experience. And the greatest gift you can give somebody on this planet is the gift of yourself, to fully and authentically show up. Because that is what we all desire. It immediately creates inclusion, not exclusion, right? The clumsier you are in expressing yourself, the clumsier you are in the practice, the more authentic you automatically become. And there is no good and bad in it. There's nothing you can do wrong, right? Sometimes when you express yourself, you may notice that the outcome on the other end is actually as you desired it to be. And sometimes you might notice that the outcome isn't as you desired it to be. And then you can investigate, like a Sherlock Holmes, like, okay, right? But the starting point is never to make yourself wrong for what you feel, never make yourself wrong for your level of skills, never make yourself wrong for not knowing an expression, because once again, learning how to express yourself is a skill set. Being fully and authentically you is a skill set. But in order to practice something in authenticity, we start from the point of view where we love ourselves, where you know that there's nothing that can go wrong, right? That it isn't even your responsibility how people respond or what they feel inside. But if you wish to convey your story truthfully as you are, right? And if you would like to create an experience on the other side where you've been listened to, right? Where people receive you, it is your choice to start learning the art of telling your story, the art of showing up as you are. Whew. Yeah. That's it. Yes, speaking is an art, and the struggle is okay. Like, the more, even if you struggle with it, if it's authentic struggle, it is such a catch. It's beautiful to actually experience authentic struggle. If this is what is inside of us, we often feel like we need to be somewhere else or someone else. And that is exactly what is causing the disconnection between you and your audience. So the audience might be your friends or your family or a relationship or a partner you speak to. But the same thing goes up when you speak to an audience of people who buy in your company, or when you're a coach. It's not about doing it good, right? Or it's not about doing it how you're supposed to be. Trust and likability comes when you are able to royally screw up and then smile about it and go like, oh yeah, okay, let's try again, right? You don't have to be the perfect salesman if you're able to take full ownership of what it is that where you're at that moment. Like, we all know that learning anything in this world is a skill. And what does a skill? It requires practice. And what is practice? Is just intensity and repetition. Repeat. Rinse off, repeat. Rinse off, repeat. Right? Do it again. And then at one moment, it becomes automatic. That is how we learn things. That is how we learn skills. But it all comes from a point of view, right? Where if you are just you, with whatever you have in that moment, and it's not your responsibility if people like that or not, right? It's not your responsibility if people like it what you sell. It's not your responsibility of pleasing your audience on the other side. Yet, having that said, it is your responsibility if you wish to create a specific outcome on the other side. And that might be people listening to you. That might be receiving support from others. That might be selling, right? That might be your showing up in your company. That might be giving presentations in board meetings, right? Then it is your responsibility to communicate in such a way that the audience doesn't feel like you want something from them. So I don't place my responsibility by my audience, right? I take my responsibility for myself, my emotions for myself, my communication for myself, and I take full 100% ownership of what I create on the other side. And then after what happens, right, I let the other decide if this is for them or not, right? If they choose to step in with support, if they choose to buy or sell, buy something from me, or to engage in my products or in my services, maybe it's not for them at that moment, right? I let them have their experience, and if they say no, it says nothing about me, right? It just says that they are at a different place in time, space, and in this moment. And that goes up for everything in this world. So the art of communication, the art of taking responsibility, and the art of choosing your words really carefully from a place of authenticity is one of the, at least in my experience, it was one of the greatest gifts I could ever give myself. Because from this point, I could start creating what it is. It's so empowering to just be so totally awkward and learn. So be awkward, right? I started photographing when about 10 years ago, I think. And I started working for quite a big company in the video gaming industry, a really high prestigious company. And I needed to practice. Like, I was terrified, absolutely terrified to stand in front of a stage. So what did I do? I started practicing, but I needed to step up on the stage in order to photograph the audience. And at that moment, I wasn't ready yet, right? I wasn't ready yet to speak for that audience of, and sometimes there were like 500 people, and sometimes there were 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people in front of that stage. And I was standing there like petrified, right? And then I discovered, because I was photographing, of course, people look at me like this is the camera. So I started practicing showing up, right? I started practicing not knowing what it is that I was doing. I had no clue. I just pressed the button there. making a picture of an audience of like 5,000 people, and it needed to be the perfect moment, right? And then I looked at my screen and it was completely unsharp. It was totally unsharp. And so I smiled at the audience of like this couple of hundred or 1,000 people, and I went in my mind like, holy moly, I'm getting paid for this. And I was beating myself up inside of my mind for not being able to handle the equipment because they were paying me to be able to handle this technical equipment, the camera. And I had no clue. It was completely unsharp. And like 5,000 people were just staring at me. And I was like, I need to do this again. So I just learned the craft of like showing up again. So I was like, guys, oh well, yeah, we can do this even better. And I had to speak. OMG, I had to speak, say something. So I just laughed clumsily. I said, oh yeah, one more, please, can we do one more? And I looked, it was slightly better. Still not fully sharp. So what did I do? The next day, right? Luckily, the event was like 4 or 5 days. So I had 4 or 5 days to practice it, to get one shot, which usually takes like a fraction of a second, and to do that perfect. So the next day I showed up on that stage again, right? Because the program repeated, and I did it again, right? And I started learning that, hey, wait, like people don't see me, they don't see my fears, they don't see the camera, they don't know what's happening in my mind, right? They are there for themselves, like I am here for myself. And what I learned was that by standing on that stage, and I wasn't speaking at that moment, I was photographing, was that I was actually doing them a favor, right, of being seen. Because if you point a camera at somebody, then well, that's cool, right? Like I am important enough to be seen because there is this camera pointed at me. And I started learning the trick of really, really, really seeing people and seeing myself, to show up, right, and to talk to people with the camera. And so I learned to speak authentically and show up in many, many, many different ways. Like I was so clumsy. I couldn't write properly. I'm still not a perfect person when it comes to spelling. I make a lot of spelling mistakes. And when I was younger, I always thought that if I make a lot of spelling mistakes, that means that I can't write. Well, that's not really true. My stories were amazing. I just couldn't spell. But because I was so afraid, because somebody always told me like, you can't write, but they meant my speaking, or they meant my my spelling, not my writing, right, which is also speaking. I kept that away for a very long time, and then like the universe gives me this greatest gift. One of my first jobs ever was in the PR industry, and what does PR mean? Speaking as well as writing. So the art of communication. So I had another moment where I learned to practice the art of communication. It is the constantly showing up and trying from a point of authenticity, right? It's okay to royally screw up. It is okay not to know, because in the not knowing but just coming, there is the authenticity. And there is the connection with whatever it is you do in life. Absolutely whatever. And you may think like, well, this might not apply to my specific situation because my cultural background is completely different. Or I work in a different industry and my family is different. And we have different mindsets and cultures here. And like, no. It doesn't really matter which culture you come from, which background you have, what your parents know or don't know. My parents didn't know anything about communication. It is the drive inside, right, to be able to create what it is that you want to create on the other side, to learn your craft, right, and to show up for yourself. And showing up for yourself doesn't mean that you have to become this public speaker, right, that you have to become really well at speaking, but communicating what it is that you do, right? Communicating yourself in whatever way that is, if that's through dance or through speaking or through any other way of performance, through your company, it's all communication. It is all communication. There's emotional communication. There's like words communication. There is physical communication. There is so many levels of communicating, and it always starts up with being real and the guts to be real. And there is just one thing you need to know in order to have the guts to be real is Or no, maybe a bit more than one thing. First of all, there's no way you can do something wrong in life. You are loved anyway by Source, Allah, God, Cosmic Google, unconditional love, how we want to call it. That is just a given. You don't have to do anything for that in order to receive that. It's your natural birthright. Then second of all, realize that the response on the other side, the response is never your responsibility. Right? Whatever people feel and whatever people experience isn't your responsibility. And then with that comes the greatest responsibility of all, to take 100% ownership of keeping and expressing with you what is yours. Right? Not giving your responsibility to somebody else. Just like what they experience is not for you, what you experience is not for them. It's just for yourself. Right? And from there, become aware of that what we create on the other side is fully up to you. Play with it. If it's not the desired outcome yet, just try again. Just try again, because that is what you deserve. That is what you deserve, to try again. And together we play and we create and we celebrate every single mess up, every single awkward conversation, every single awkward performance, every messed up singing experience, everything you can imagine. Because from there we learn. And how cool is it to see people put their best up for what it is that they have, right? I'm almost absolutely sure when you see somebody that is so clumsy in their performance, but they're doing the best they can, and you see that they enjoy it and that they just really, really, really desire to get better at this. Can't you just do anything else than just love that? Can't you just do anything else than just love that? So can you imagine what happens if the favor is returned to you and you show up as your clumsy self, radiating that light, power, and passion of what it is that you like to do and what you like to learn, and be so awkward and clumsy. And then, right, instead of thinking that other people think like, oh, she's not good enough, what would happen if you think, or if you experience others to give you the support and go like, wow, she shows up authentically, like that is cool to experience, the same thing as you would do for somebody else. So yeah, whew, this is fun. I love a good, people would call it a rant, but for me, like, I love the art of speaking. I love the art of radiating, using my words so carefully, and I practice it for, like, I started practicing since I was 15 years old, and tomorrow is my birthday, and on my profile, and I will post a link in this video, you will find a webinar that I'm organizing where I'm going to show you some tips and some tricks and some cool stuff that I learned along the way in order to show up authentically, to create your legacy, right? To take ownership of your creation, and to be with me. And we're gonna have a blast. And because I practice this, and I will tell you my age because it's my birthday tomorrow. I will tell you my age, and I've been practicing this for more than 20 years right now. And I will also share with you the one secret, and it's so incredibly easy. Which I used in order to look and radiate about at least like 10 years younger in my physique than that I actually am. Most people, depending on if I open my mouth or not and what it is that I wear or not, like attribute me all kinds of different types of ages. But usually I am, when I zip it, people think I'm I'm like 10 years younger than that I am, and I go like, yes, take that in the pocket. And when I do speak, people sometimes go, you become quite ageless because you look really young, but what comes out of your mouth seems to be quite intelligent, and there's some truth in that. So there's this wisdom radiating too. And when we authentically show up as who it is that we is, whatever is there will shine and radiate. And with me, that are the words. And with you, that might be something totally different. And my greatest joy in life, besides doing this, is also to serve you in helping you get that same you up, right? And to find your direction in life and your flow, and to either help you elevate your business, because I've served businessmen and entrepreneurs who were doing what it is that they were doing for a very long time already. But it just didn't feel very authentic and aligned. And like, what do we all want to do? We just want to feel our natural self, passion, fire, love, and power, authentic power. So I help them reshape and reframe and rephrase their company in order to actually make it aligned with their authentic self. I've supported, and this was so cool, like professional bodybuilders who were insecure because their story in their minds was not aligned with their true power, passion, and fire, and they kept on losing. In 14 weeks, they went from losing in B-type competitions to actually winning the Dutch nationals and starting to compete in international competitions. I help people who are dreaming of setting up their businesses in whatever it is to make sure that it's fully aligned with who they are, and teach them the art of communication, teach them the art of showing up for yourself. And there are many, it sounds very simple, yet it's real art, and the techniques are really simple. And then once again, if you really want to become good at something, it is in the practice and the repetition and the practice and the repetition. Right? So all the tools that I'm gonna share with you, and I learned so many stuff. I was like the sponge, and I practice for more than 20 years, and I've flown over the world to learn from all these incredible people, and I will keep on doing that, because there's no end game to being happy. There's no end game to opening up and showing passion, power, fire. And I would love to share all of what I learned with you. And I'm gonna do that through all the programs that you will see starting to show up in your timelines and on your Facebooks and on my list to support you in doing all these things, because I have only one greatest pleasure in life, and that is seeing other people shine as bright as they can. Because how cool is that? How much energy and fire is there? Like I love a bit of energy, and yeah, well, there's also like girls underneath you. There's a lot of femininity and power. Don't worry that you have to show up as somewhere as somebody as you're not, right? Showing up in your power is also very sweet, soft, and gentle. It's not always screaming. That I just like to have a bit of theater. That is something else. But it's not in being loud. It's being you. It's absolutely being you. So if you are not on my email list, yes, go to my website, www.tamararobeer.com. Or www.playcreatecelebrate.com, because that is sounds so much more fun than just my name, because it's not about me, it's about you. It's about you. And me with that, because I just belong to the crowd. I belong to you guys. I'm just the same as you. And sign up so that I can actually help you, and that I can actually support you, that I can, because then I can make you aware of it. It's like I try to chase all of you down, right? On social media and everywhere, to like, whenever you're ready, whenever you feel like it, if you want to. Yes, I'm here to help you, to serve you, and to bring my greatest gifts to you, to help you bring your greatest gifts out, right? To create your vision, mission, legacy. And I can do that best if I have a way of contacting you. And the best way of contacting you and to keep in touch with me is to go to the website, to sign up. I will send you, of course, lots and lots and lots of good stuff too when you sign up. It's not for nothing. I will royally serve you in return, because I just love doing that. And now I'm really going. Yeah, I'm really going. Like, now it became awkward. I'm really going. I've got some lunch here. I'm going to eat that. And then, I'm going to create that stuff for you guys. So, have an amazing day where you are in the world. I know lots of you from different places in the world are watching me. And talk to you later. Bye-bye.